My name is Kwabna Chencheniboti, and indeed this is your election headquarters. My name is Kwabna Chencheniboti, like I said earlier. Time for us to delve into some issues that are of relevance to the political landscape this morning. Let's start off with the ruling NDC. And former president and founder of the governing National Democratic Congress, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, has cautioned the NDC against mimicking happenings in the new Patriotic Party as it fights to retain power in the upcoming elections. Now, instead, the founder of the party is urging party faithful to capitalize on the principles and values that define the party in order to secure victory. Now, he explained that the opposition NPP is a formidable party that must not be taken for granted. He was speaking at the launch of the NDC's 2016 campaign in Cape Coast.
The NPP cannot be underestimated. You know it, I know it. They've been in existence for a long time and have been changing their names up till this day. The nature of who they are, what they are, where they've come from, is something they are happy with, and they will be there for a long time. The calculation I want to put before you is that by virtue of who and what they are, their mannerisms, their character, will necessarily give rise to what you and I are in the NDC. In other words, listen carefully. By virtue of who we are, where we've come from, how we came about into being, I keep saying we cannot afford to fight them on their terms. It's important that we fight them on our terms. What are those terms? In other words, let's not mimic their behavior. Let us reach into the principles and the values that emerged out of the circumstances that gave birth to us. And if we can hold onto those principles and those values, we will move way into the future and no one can ever defeat us.
So that was former President, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, speaking at the campaign launch of the governing National Democratic Congress in Cape Coast yesterday. And what President Mahama on his part says, the new Patriotic Party cannot in any way compare itself to the NDC as far as achievements are concerned. Now, particularly in this very clip we are just about showing you, he's been speaking about, or should I say, touting the achievements of the NDC in the educational sector under his leadership. Let's take a listen to him. We'll be back shortly with some more.
Mr. Chairman, Ghana has swept all the best 3 top positions in the West African Secondary School Certificate Examination over the last 3 years. This year, the percentage of students obtaining from A1 to A6 in 6 subjects was 24.7%. In 2000, when the NPP left office, it was an abysmal 13%. Indeed, in 2007, when someone who describes this year's performance as poor was foreign minister, it was a meager 10.6%. Today, schools in rural areas are catching up and posting very impressive results. I'll be the first to admit that a lot remains to be done in the area of infrastructure, teaching, learning materials, and teacher motivation. But we cannot cut our noses to spite our face. We must recognize the impressive improvements that we have achieved. It was said of the Bourbon dynasty that they learnt nothing and forgot nothing. The same can be said of the current leadership of our opponents. developments in the largest opposition party threaten the democratic health of our country. It is said that the nature of an organization is founded on the character of its leadership. The largest opposition party has prided itself as the apostles of democracy. And this has metamorphosed in recent times into a very intolerant organization. Those who can hail the most verbal abuse are the most respected and hailed in that party. They are patted on the back by the leadership for doing a good job. The soul of the party has been captured by the hawkish and intolerant fringe of the party. And this group has cowed the moderates and other level-headed members of the party into silence. Anyone who raises his or her voice against the current leadership is promptly savaged in the media and on other platforms. And even the former president, on whose record the party is running, has not been spared his share of these insults. The verbal abuse has led to a culture of silence in the party, and even though the emperor is wearing no clothes, everybody is afraid to tell him so. The party has become intolerant of dissenting opinion, and those who have spoken up have been promptly dealt with, removed from office, and threatened with fiscal harm. These days, only a few dare raise their heads in opposition to the leadership, and all are waiting for the bus to crash and then to repair it and bring it back on the road. The suspected Agenda 2020 is a result of the intolerance in the current leadership of that party. And this intolerance stretches even outside the party. Any person who says anything positive about John Mahama or the NDC administration is promptly set upon with insults. Religious people, chiefs, celebrities have all been harassed for expressing their support for the NDC administration. And yet there are chiefs and celebrities who have expressed support for the presidential candidate of the NPP, and nobody has insulted them for that. This cannot be healthy for our democracy. A mark of competence and good leadership is to unify your followers behind you. And that is not the case in that party today. I know these comments I've made would elicit a barrage of insults, but I've already borne the brunt of NPP's insults, vilifications, and lies. Indeed, they have won an Olympic gold medal in that department. And in the Olympic Games, there's nothing higher than a gold medal. But as our illustrious Professor Jonathan Mill said, Ziufiasem. So let me refocus on our party that is united and poised for victory in December, God willing.
And that was President John Dramani Mahama on that very campaign platform. Well, if you do not know as of now, then indeed the NDC has officially launched its campaign. They did that on Sunday in the Central Regional Capital, Cape Coast, and we just brought you sound clips of that very event. Now, if you heard the president, he mentioned quite a number of things, but particularly most of the things that happened throughout the program has to do with a bit of an attack, if I should use that word, on the leader of the largest opposition party in the country, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Well, we are privileged to be joined on the phone lines now by Mustafa Hamid, who's aide to the NPP's flag bearer, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. Mr. Hamid, good morning. Many thanks for joining us here on News Desk, sir.
Yeah, good morning to you and your listeners. But quick correction, I'm not an aide. Don't let Nanado's aide come at me. I'm his spokesperson.
Spokesperson, right. Okay, many thanks for that correction. Mr. Hamid, now, we'll be delving into specifics, but let me just take your preliminary thoughts on the NDC's campaign launch yesterday and whether or not it's in any way sends shivers down the spines of the NPP, knowing that this is what you're coming up against.
Well, I don't know what exactly you mean by what we're coming up against. Every competition ought to be taken on its strength. And therefore, I don't think that by our estimation, there are any underdogs in any election. So we already know that the NDC is a formidable party, just as they know that we are a formidable party. So I wouldn't say that we are frightened. At the same time, I wouldn't say that we are complacent. So we would fight this election on the basis of what it should be, on the basis of our own strength and our own resilience.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the issues that came up. And for me, one thing I'm picking out has to do with the seeming attacks on Mr. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo and your flag bearer, indeed. And quite a number of points were made. In the very last sound clip we heard before coming to you on phone, we did hear the president speak of issues surrounding the seeming disunity in the NPP and the fact that, well, Nana Addo Dankwa has done a terrible job as a leader. Seeing that now quite a number of people in the party are discontent, yet are unable to speak because of the culture of silence that has been introduced into the party by your flag bearer.
Hello?
Yes, Mustafa.
You said?
The question I was asking has to do with this very issue of leadership crisis that the president seems to project in your party. Now, he's been raising a number of issues, particularly with the leadership attributes of your flag bearer, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, suggesting that, well, he's failed as a leader because the primary mark of a leader, as in being able to rally followers behind him, he's failed at that. Because already we do know of quite a number of people who are discontent in the party. But the president goes ahead to suggest that, well, even a lot more people are not happy, yet they cannot speak in the party.
Well, I don't know what that means. Maybe he knows those people. I don't know those people. I don't understand what he means by unifying everybody behind you. If it is the case of 2 or 3 people who were suspended from the party in the past, I don't think that plays any electoral card for the NDC at all. Indeed, if we would interpret it in its proper perspective, then it shows that the NPP is a party of law and order. Every organization has laws, rules, and regulations, just as a country has. And those who play by the rules ought to be rewarded, and those who do not play by the rules ought to be punished. That is why a country has a judicial system where people who fall foul of the law are punished according to law. So if people fell foul of NPP's constitution and were suspended as a result, that shows that the NPP is a party that will implement the laws of our country and guard them and reward those who play by the rules and punish those who
The posturing suggests that anyone who holds dissenting views in the party is sidelined or is forced to shut up.
I don't know about anybody who has any dissenting views who has been made to shut up. I don't.
Well, we've heard from Dr. Kobna Arthur Kennedy. We've heard from Mr. Paula Wintermere Foko. We've heard from your second deputy general secretary, who was also suspended, and a few others, including regional executives and all seeking to push forward dissenting views, and they've had to suffer the brunt for that.
You don't hear Arthur Kennedy even up to this day talking on radio, writing articles. You don't hear Nyahota Makulo talking and saying things on radio. You don't hear Paula Foko. You haven't read his interviews in Africa Watch and other places. They are talking. I don't know who has gagged anybody. They are still talking. Everybody is saying what they want to say. I don't know what you are talking about.
These are people who were duly elected. For most of these people who have been suspended now, they were duly elected by an electoral body, obviously, and they were holding powers, obviously, and trying to gather as much votes as possible for your candidates. And now, because of one reason or the other, they've been asked to step aside, not take part in anything, and you think is not in any way going to affect the chances of the NPP?
Why, that's the first time you heard it. NDC went to Koforidua Congress. They beat Dr. Obeda Samoa and Francis Esiam and betrayed them and with horsewhip and compelled them to exit the NDC and form the Democratic Freedom Party. They went to Sunyani and did all sorts of things against Mrs. Rawlings and compelled her to exit the party and form the National Democratic Party. They did all sorts of things against Guzitano and his people in 2000 and compelled them to go and form the National Reform Party. that is a mark of tolerance.
Subsequently, the NDC lost the elections.
You said?
Subsequently, they lost the elections.
Yes. But I'm just attacking your question that NPP does not tolerate dissenting views, and I'm giving you concrete examples of of highest levels of intolerance in the NDC. That's what we should attack. We would come to what wins elections and does not win elections. So that's a separate matter. The factors based on which people win elections are not just when those people disagree. No. That's a different matter. And we are talking about dissension. He is saying that in our party, people are not allowed to hold dissenting views. And I'm giving you concrete examples of how people who held dissenting views were beaten, actually beaten, with horse whip and chased out of the NDC. That's the point I'm making to you.
So it has to do with an issue of equalization now.
Master, I'm not talking about equalization. I'm just telling you that he doesn't qualify to say that in NPP, people are not allowed to hold dissenting views because we haven't shipped anybody. We haven't expelled people from our party and compelled them to go and form other parties because they held dissenting views. So I'm refuting his allegation that NPP is intolerant. I'm saying that we are not, and I'm saying that on the contrary, they are. So I haven't said that we are intolerant. If I said we are intolerant and they too are intolerant, that's equalization. I'm saying that there has no evidence to show that we are intolerant. And I told you that in our case, it is just a case of applying the rules, and every organization ought to have rules. And organizations survive because the rules of those organizations are obeyed and applied. So we are not intolerant. I'm saying on the contrary that they are. So I'm not talking about equalization at all.
Mr. Hamid, again, at this very campaign launch of the governing National Democratic Congress, quite a number of things came up. They touted the achievements and the fact that, well, they've been able to deliver on a number of promises they made. And again, let me rope in your flag bearer again. They do say that, well, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo seems to be making a lot of promises, but that's all they are. Promises. Well, they have been tried and tested, and they have delivered on their mandate. So really, what's the more reason why people should give the NPP and indeed Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo a chance?
Because we've done it before. I can't people say that you did and your friend I boafo. When we were in power, everybody saw the kinds of things that we did for this country. All the kinds of social protection measures that are in place for the protection of the vulnerable and the weak and the underprivileged in our society were put in place by the NPP government. Today, they've collapsed all those social intervention measures. So what are they talking about? What is a promise? A political party on earth goes to an election without promising anything. That's what elections are about, unless they don't know what democracy is about. Democracy is you come to people with a promise, and then they examine those promises, and then they decide to buy into those promises or not to buy into them. Any party that has no promise is a visionless party and doesn't know what it's about. So if they are saying that they really have no promise at all, that's on to them.
One point they are making is that, well, for most of the things your candidate is promising, they are already delivering on them. Hello? So what's the point?
Hello?
I'm saying one thing that has come out is that they are saying, I'm speaking of the NDC, that for most of the promises Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo is making, the NDC is delivering on them. So what's the point?
What, for example, what promise have we made that they are delivering on?
Well, they say, you keep saying you're going to create jobs, you are going to be getting the economy to respond to a number of... Okay. They do say that, yes, you put yourself in a position that indeed you can create a lot more jobs for the youth, quite a number of youth who do not have jobs now, and a few other projects. But they say that, yes, indeed, a lot more jobs are being created as we speak. The enabling environment is being created to allow for businesses in the country to be able to maximize profits and all. So, in essence, the NDC is seeking to say that there's no point in even calling for change in the first place.
Oh, really? So all those people who have been dismissed and sacked as a result of the collapse of industries, all these workers who have been expelled at home.
Again, one key issue, even with a free SHS that, again, Nanado is promising.
Please, don't do this. Don't do this. Ask one question, and when I tackle it, you
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine. You go ahead.
It's not right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. You asked a question about jobs. Let me finish. And
sure.
Then you can move on to
sure. Go ahead, Mustafa.
Absolutely. Now, I was making the point that we are just from the northern parts of the Western region. go and see the teeming jobless people who met us because their industries have all been collapsed as a result of high taxation, lack of electricity, lack of power. The Unemployed Graduates Association, was it formed by Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo? Or when we say Unemployed Graduates Association, what does it mean? It's an association of people who are well-fed and who have a job, right? That's the NDC definition of unemployment. That's fine. So they should go ahead and deceive themselves and tickle themselves and laugh. Look, every government that comes builds bridges. Every government, since Nkrumah, has built schools. Every government has built roads. We were making roads, we were making bridges, and yet when they came, they promised that they would also do infrastructure, isn't it? So what are they talking about? Because government builds, every government builds a school, and another government builds schools. Therefore, we should have a one-party state. Another government cannot say that we will build better schools. You are building a 6-classroom block, okay, at 50,000 Ghana cedis. MTN Foundation goes around the villages and building the same 6-unit classroom blocks at 25,000 Ghana cedis. So we cannot say that when we come, we will build better schools at cheaper cost and give it value for money, so that we will build many more schools for the people of our country. Those are different scenarios. Okay, so they shouldn't tell us. There are different ways of doing the same thing, and we are not about to do the same kinds of things that they pretend to be doing. We have said that when we come, people who import raw material, okay, for the production of goods that will benefit the people, we will take away those taxes so that people import raw material for cheap, and therefore they will expand their businesses and employ more people. Let them put taxes in place. So people to produce at better capacity.
Mustafa, sorry, we seem to be losing you there a bit. I don't know whether you could just reposition yourself slightly so we could try and see whether you could have a better line.
In a moving vehicle, so repositioning myself may mean getting out.
Okay, well, indeed, we can hear you now anyway. Yeah. Right.
So the point I'm making to you is that the NDC doesn't understand what democracy is about. In their mind, democracy, I don't know really what their definition of democracy is, but it doesn't mean that because they those rules, if I just only the state campaign against NPP to get the NPP out of power. Because we also don't know them. I doing quite a way that
Wow, the lines seem to be giving us a bit of a problem there. I don't know whether we could rectify that and return to this conversation, but if not, we might have to move on and do a few more stories. But indeed, that was Mustafa Hamid, his spokesperson for the flag bearer of the opposition, the Patriotic Party, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and you've heard him speak on quite a number of issues. Well, he's also seeking to project the NPP as a party that's very tolerant, and rather, unlike the NDC, that is very divisive and intolerant to dissenting views. Well, he's also been mentioning quite a number of things, and really how the NPP will seek to better the country's agenda and introduce a lot more jobs to cater for the unemployment situation in the country. In due course, we'll be bringing a lot more conversations around this very issue and several others. Do stay with the Your Journey channel here on Multi TV. Remember, this is your election headquarters.